You've wasted more nights than you care to admit, and you don't have to tell me. I know you feel it. Every time you lay your head on the pillow, deep down, you know that something is wrong, that the day that just passed was just another chapter in a story you don't want to tell anymore, a story that doesn't seem to belong to you, a life that drags on and on while you try to convince yourself that everything is fine, but it's not, and you know it. You know it because you feel a silent emptiness that appears when the noise of the world falls silent. You know why that nagging feeling in your chest won't go away, no matter how many videos you watch, how many distractions you look for, or how many excuses you come up with. The truth is that you've been fooling yourself. You've been living a lukewarm version of your own life, waiting for time to solve what only you can solve. And yet, day after day, you keep repeating the same routine. You wake up, you run, you get distracted, you get angry, you get busy, and before you know it, it's night again. And then that voice comes, low but insistent. Something is wrong. Something needs to change. And the problem isn't that you hear it. The problem is ignoring it, pretending it's not there, pretending that you can still go on like this, as if everything will magically align itself at some undefined moment in the future. But the future is not a miracle. The future is a reflection of the decisions you make now. And that's why I need to tell you something you might not want to hear. The real turning point doesn't come subtly. The real turning point is an assault. It doesn't knock on the door asking for permission. It breaks in. It invades. It forces you to choose. Either you change or you remain stagnant forever. The problem is that many people expect change to come from outside. They wait for a sign, a divine motivation, a cosmic confirmation that now is the right time. But that time never comes. It never will. Because what changes your life isn't a miracle. It's a choice made with pain, with courage, with brutal honesty. And honesty hurts, because when you decide to stop hiding behind distractions, behind justifications and delays, what's left is you, naked. No excuses, no filters. And that's where the real challenge comes in. Admitting that you're not living the life you'd like to. Admitting that you've been wasting time, opportunities, and energy. Admitting that you've drifted away from yourself. And do you know why this is so difficult? Because it means accepting that you are primarily responsible. It means recognizing that no one sabotaged your journey, that no one stopped you from trying. You simply chose not to act. But it also means something else. If you're the one who allowed this state to happen, you're also the one who can change it. Not tomorrow, not later, now. But to do that, you have to face what you've been avoiding for so long. Silence, the silence of dawn. That moment when no one is distracting you, no one is charging you, no one is watching you. That's when you can finally listen to yourself without interference. And that's where the method comes in. A simple method, cruelly simple. A sheet of paper, a pen, and the decision to face the truth. To write, that's it. Write down what's wrong. Write down everything you've been doing that sabotages your evolution, without sugarcoating it, without sparing yourself, without justifying it. Write down every bad choice, every cowardly attitude, every pattern that repeats itself and keeps you in the same place. Write until it hurts. And when it hurts, keep writing, because it's only at that point that your defenses come down. It's only at that point that you stop lying to yourself. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are." But this is only possible when you first agree to see who you really are. Not the character you project on social media, not the role you play to please others, but the me that bleeds when no one is looking, the me that is tired of pretending. And to reach this level of clarity, there's no point in consuming more motivational content. There's no point in following more inspiring profiles. There's no point in repeating empty mantras. What you need is courage. The courage to dive deep into your own mess. The courage to stop running away. The courage to admit that much of your suffering is caused by choices you make every day, even though you know they're bad for you. Dostoevsky said that suffering is the key to self-knowledge. And if you think about it, it's true. It is in pain that we discover our limits. It's in anguish that we realize what matters. It is in discomfort that the urgency of transformation is revealed. But most people run away from this. They try to numb the pain with cheap distraction. Series, social media, food, drink, casual sex, endless scrolling through content that only serves to keep you asleep. And while you stay asleep, your life is being written by inertia, and nothing changes. Because what paralyzes you isn't the fear of failure. It's the fear of admitting that you have more control than you like to think. Because if you recognize that control, then you can no longer blame anyone. Not your parents, not the government, not your boss, not the crisis, not fate. And that's why most people don't change. Because change requires taking full responsibility. And that's scary, but it's also liberating, because the same hand that held you back is the one that can set you free. The key has always been with you. You've just been too busy looking for an external hero. And that's where Tarantino comes in. An ordinary guy, no contacts, no money, no degree, but with an unhealthy obsession for telling the story he wanted to tell. A story that didn't follow the expected script, that didn't please everyone, but it was his. Authentic, dirty, full of flaws, but alive. And that's what made him what he is today. Someone who didn't accept being a supporting actor in his own story. Someone who took the script of his own life and rewrote every scene with blood, sweat, and truth. And what about you? What story are you writing? Is it really yours? Or is it an inherited narrative? A role you were given and accepted for fear of disappointment? The world is full of people living stories they didn't choose. Stories imposed by social pressure, by family expectations, by fear of disappointing. And that's why so many people feel empty. Because they are playing a role that has nothing to do with who they really are. But now, right here, right now, you have the chance to do something different, to decide that you will no longer accept being an extra in your own existence, that you will no longer wait for something to change on its own, that you're going to take charge of your life, whatever the cost. And no, it's not easy. It never has been, but it is simple, brutally simple. And it starts today, with paper, with pen, with silence, and with courage. And if you really do it tonight, if you have the courage to sit down with pen and paper in the silence of the early hours of the morning and write down everything that's wrong, everything that's failing, everything that you've been ignoring, something inside you will start to change. But make no mistake, this change won't come easily. It won't come dressed in sudden motivation, nor will it bring with it immediate promises of happiness. It will come, first and foremost, with pain, with resistance, with a part of you trying to stop it. Because change requires touching wounds that you have spent your life trying to hide. It requires naming the fears you've masked with excuses. And that's the part that nobody tells you. When you start writing yourself truthfully, there's no hiding anymore. You find yourself naked in front of yourself. And in this confrontation, many people stop because it hurts too much to recognize how many times you've sabotaged yourself, the number of opportunities you've passed up, the number of excuses you've used to stand still. But there is something even more powerful than this pain, the clarity it brings. And it is this clarity that changes lives. That's why I say to you, write it all down. Every mistake, every fear, every stupid decision you've been repeating. Don't try to justify anything. Don't try to soften the severity of what you feel. Don't allow yourself the comfort of lying, because you've done it enough times. You've put it off too long. You've said, not now, more than you should have. And every not now has turned into a lost year, a wasted chance, a half-lived life. And if you're waiting for the right moment to change, I'm going to tell you something that perhaps no one has ever told you clearly. The right moment doesn't exist. It never has. The feeling of being ready will never come before the decision. It comes afterwards, after the first step, after the first action, however small, however imperfect. Courage doesn't appear before movement. It is born along the way. So stop waiting for fear to pass. It won't. Fear doesn't disappear because you've waited long enough. It only dissolves when you act, when you decide to move, even though you're trembling, even though you're not sure, even though you don't know what's going to happen. And perhaps that's the hardest lesson. You have to move despite the fear, despite the doubt, despite the tiredness. And no, you don't have to solve everything today. You don't need to have a perfect plan. You just need to make a decision, a small decision, something concrete, practical, that you can put into action tomorrow. Maybe it's waking up an hour earlier. Maybe it's saying no to something that weakens you. Maybe it's sending a message you've been putting off for months. Or deleting that contact that only pulls you back. It doesn't matter how big the step is. What matters is that it gets you out of your seat. The illusion of when I'm ready is a cruel trap, because you'll never feel 100% ready. You'll never be completely sure. There will always be an excuse waiting to be used. When I have more time, when I'm less tired, when I sort out this or that. And so life goes on. Time slips away. And what could be an extraordinary story is replaced by lukewarm, mediocre chapters full of silent regrets. But let me tell you a secret. The simple act of getting up and taking action, even if you don't know if it's going to work out, already puts you on a different level to most people. Most people don't act. Most people wait. Most prefer to keep complaining, saying that one day it will change. But that one day never comes. And while you wait, the world goes on. Opportunities keep passing by. Life keeps writing scenes, with or without your conscious participation. And if you don't take over the script, someone else will. Because the world loves to occupy the space you don't protect. The expectations of others will write it for you. Society's demands will define your paths. Routine will anesthetize your conscience. And before you know it, you'll be trapped in a cycle you don't know how to get out of. Living a life you didn't choose, in a body you don't recognize, surrounded by voices that don't reflect who you really are. That's why the gesture of sitting down and writing your truth is so powerful, because it gives you back control. It gives you back authorship. And I'm not talking about control in the sense of predicting the future or manipulating destiny. I'm talking about internal control, the kind that says, I know who I am. I know what I need to change, and I'm not going to run away from it anymore. This is where the rewriting of your story begins. Not with a big event, not with a cinematic twist, but with the silent decision to be honest with yourself. And this honesty doesn't require perfection. It requires courage. The courage to stop deceiving yourself. The courage to stop blaming others. The courage to look at yourself and say, it's my fault, but so is the solution. And most importantly, the courage to accept that you already know what you need to do. That's the truth. Deep down, you know. You've always known. You just didn't want to admit it, because admitting it is painful. To admit that you could be living another life if you had made other choices. To admit that you were the architect of your own chaos. That you built your prison with small daily decisions, all made in the name of immediate comfort. But what if I told you that it is precisely this pain that can set you free? That this discomfort is the spark that pushes you forward? Because pain only appears when something isn't right. And if it's hurting, it's because there's still time to change. There's still something inside you that refuses to accept mediocrity as your final destination. And if you've come this far, listening to all this, it's because that part is still alive. It's still pulsing. It's still crying out for a chance. And now you know what the next step is. Stop waiting. Stop running away. Stop lying and act, even if you don't know if it will work out. even without any guarantee. Because the only certainty you have is that if you carry on as you are, nothing will change. So before you go to sleep tonight, make this promise to yourself. Not to change everything at once, but to no longer ignore who you are and what needs to be done. This is your chance, and it starts now. Accepting this hurts. It hurts like few other things in life, because accepting that you're the architect of your own misery is like facing a mirror after years of running away from the reflection. It means looking yourself in the eye and admitting that you could have done things differently, that there were other ways, that you had choices but preferred to follow the most comfortable, the most predictable, the most anesthetic. And that destroys you inside, because you can't go back. You can't undo time. You can't relive lost days. But that's precisely the point where most people stop, at regret, guilt, the unbearable weight of what if. But there's one detail that changes everything. That weight, however painful, can become fuel. It can become strength. Because when you take your responsibility seriously, when you stop victimizing yourself and understand that yes, you made a mistake, but you're still here, you're still alive, you still have a blank sheet of paper in front of you, something changes. And that something is the spark of reconstruction. It's the start of a new storyline. Not because the world has decided to be generous to you, but because you finally decided to stop running away from yourself. But most people don't get this far. Most choose to numb themselves. They choose to distract themselves with empty entertainment, with screens that never turn off, with routines that automate thought and suffocate consciousness. Most prefer the paralyzing comfort of passivity to the active pain of transformation. And this comes at a cost, a high cost, because time, contrary to what they say, doesn't cure anything. Time only numbs what you refuse to resolve, and what is ignored doesn't disappear. It accumulates, it takes root. And one day, it suffocates you. So let me save you years of frustration. Time won't solve your life. It won't give you answers. It won't clean up your mess. If you don't use time as a tool for change, it will become a graveyard of unlived versions of yourself. Every you that could have been, buried by procrastination, cowardice, and self-delusion. That's why silence matters. And I'm not talking about superficial silence, the kind that comes when you turn off the television or put your cell phone on airplane mode. I'm talking about real silence, deep silence, the kind that only appears when the world finally falls silent and you find yourself alone with own thoughts. Precisely why the dawn method. Because at night, when no one demands anything of you, when there are no external stimuli, when there's no need to perform, you find what is really hidden inside you. You find your monsters. And that's when most people tremble, because these monsters are real. They're thoughts you've pushed under the carpet. They're truths you've avoided facing. They're parts of you that you reject because you believe you don't have the strength to deal with them. But you do. You always have. You just needed to stop running away. Dawn is your editing room. It's where you can cut scenes that no longer fit, delete repetitive dialogue, rewrite the tone of the story. And no, you don't have to edit the whole script at once. You don't have to change your whole life today. But you do need to start. You need to put your finger on the wound, and instead of running away from the pain, sit with it, listen to it, understand it, because every pain has an origin. Every repetition has an explanation, and you have to dig until you find it. And if you're still not convinced that you can do it alone, think of Tarantino. He didn't become a movie genius because someone gave him permission. Nobody pointed at him and said, "Now you can tell your story." He simply locked himself in a room and started writing, with the resources he had, with the reality he had, without approval, no security, no guarantees, but with one obsession: to tell his own version of the world. You don't have to be a filmmaker, but you do need to have the same obsession, to tell your story authentically, your way. Not the story others want to hear, not the one your parents projected for you, not the one your boss expects you to live. Your story. And before you write the new one, you have to erase what's rotten. This is the part that almost nobody does. Everyone wants to start something new, a diet, a project, a habit. But nobody wants to let go of the old. Nobody wants to let go of the anchors that keep the boat afloat. But it's impossible to sail with a hold full of debris. Before moving forward, you need to clear it out. You need to identify what's pulling you down. You need to cut out what no longer serves you. Imagine that your life is a movie, and you've been recording bad scenes for years. Scenes of self-sabotage, of toxic relationships, of impulsive choices. There's no point in trying to record a happy ending on top of a plot that's still being written in pain. You need to edit. You need to revise. You need to have the courage to say, this part no longer makes sense, and then delete it, consciously, radically, without attachment. And this isn't a self-help trick. It's not magic. It's not about the energy of the universe, chakra alignment, or esoteric secrets. It's about action. It's about discipline. It's about taking what you wrote down at night and turning it into a real plan, a practical commitment, a manual of changes that starts with your routine, your attitudes, your daily behavior. And yes, you will hear the inner voice telling you that you don't have time, that you're tired, that you're confused, but that voice is lying. What's missing isn't time, energy, or clarity. What's missing is courage, the courage to do what needs to be done, even if you know it's going to hurt. Because the problem has never been a lack of answers. The problem is that you already know the answers. You just don't like them. You know what you need to stop doing. You know which habits destroy you. You know which people drain you. You know what keeps you from your best self. But accepting this requires a kind of strength that few are willing to develop. The strength to face what is uncomfortable, without hiding, without justifying it, without outsourcing the blame. And this is where the author of your story is born. Not on stage, not in recognition, but behind the scenes, in the silence of the night, in the sincerity of writing, in the decision not to put it off any longer. Because if you really do it, if you face yourself with that cutting sincerity, if you write until you bleed on paper, if you look yourself in the eye and say, I'm the problem, but I'm also the solution, something will change inside you. Not magically, not overnight, but a seed will be planted. A seed of clarity, of power, of authorship. And this seed, if cultivated with honesty, with action, with continuous effort, can blossom into something that most people never experience. True freedom. I'm not talking about illusory freedom sold in motivational speeches or on social media profiles that promise a perfect life if you just think positive. I'm talking about the freedom to be the master of your own story. The freedom that arises when you understand that perfection doesn't exist, that you will make mistakes, fail, fall, but you can still keep writing. You can still rewrite. You can still choose the next paragraph. The difference between a forgettable life and one that leaves a mark is not in the absence of mistakes. It lies in the ability to change direction when all seems lost. It lies in the decision not to surrender to the narrative that others have written for you. It's in assuming that, yes, you've been absent from your own story for too long, but now you're back on center stage. You're back to being the protagonist. And here I need to tell you something that perhaps no one has had the courage to say so clearly. There is no point of return. There is no magic sign in the sky saying, now is the right time. There is no reset button. There is only this, tonight, this decision, this instant. And if you don't do anything with it, if you keep putting it off, running away, anesthetizing it, there will come a time when there will be no room for change. And that, my friend, is the real tragedy. It's not failing. It's not making mistakes. It's not falling. What destroys the soul the most is looking back and realizing that there is no more time, that youth has passed, that dreams have died, smothered in excuses, that the script has come to an end and you didn't even have the courage to hold the pen. And the most painful thing, it won't be a big dramatic moment with rain and a melancholy soundtrack. No, it will be silent, almost imperceptible. A sequence of small concessions, small decisions avoided, little no's that you give yourself every day, until, without realizing it, you've built a prison, a routine of repetitions, a closed cycle where the scenes are always the same, the dialogue is predictable, and the story no longer has any emotion. And at that point, you won't need anyone to imprison you, because you will have convinced yourself that this is your life. And this thinking is the most dangerous of all. The idea that that's just the way it is. The resigned acceptance that the most you can have is this lukewarm, soulless, dull, authorless existence. And if that puts a knot in your stomach, then you already have your answer. The answer you were looking for in books, videos, and gurus. The answer that has always been inside you. The pain of imagining a life without change, without movement, without truth. This pain is your signal. It is telling you that there is still time, that you can still do it, that all is not lost. But you need to act. You need to stop waiting, because the world won't give you space. The world won't stop for you to find yourself. It will continue, voracious, impersonal, indifferent. And if you don't take your place, someone else will. The expectations of others will fill the void. Society will push you into molds. Routine will take care of extinguishing your flame. And here's the most brutal part, but also the most liberating. No one will come and save you. There is no secret mentor. There is no someone out there with all the answers. There is no mystical figure waiting in the wings to hold your hand. It's not going to happen. The only person who can pull you out of the hole is the one you see in the mirror. And far from being a reason to despair, this should set you free. Because if the problem is in you, so is the solution. You don't depend on anyone. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need the world to approve of you. And if you still doubt this, look around you. How many people do you know who live on automatic? Who wake up every day to repeat the same tired sequence of events? Who complain about life but never do anything to change it? Who prefer known pain to unknown freedom? Most of us are in this state. And if you've come this far, if you're listening to all this, it's because you're not like the majority. Or at least you don't want to be. And the difference between those who change and those who remain stuck is one. The former act before they feel ready. They don't wait for the perfect motivation. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They don't wait for the universe to give them a sign. They act with fear, with doubt, with confusion, because they've understood something that changes everything. Fear doesn't go away before you act. It disappears afterwards, on the way. So close your eyes for a moment. Imagine that you don't change anything, that you wake up tomorrow the same, with the same fears, the same habits, the same excuses. Imagine that a month passes, and then a year, then 10. You're still there, in the same place. How does that make you feel? If the mere image of that future distresses you, then you already have everything you need to get started, because no one feels this discomfort by chance. It's a calling, and the only way to silence this pain is to respond to it with action. This night is still yours. Time is still on your side. The pen is still in your hand. You can still write, but not tomorrow, now. Because there are only two types of people in the world: those who write their own story and those who let others write it for them. If this video made you think, if any part of it really touched you, I urge you to like it and subscribe to the channel. This makes a huge difference so that this message reaches more people who, like you, are looking for a truer path. And if at any point you felt that this content helped you, shook you up, or gave you the courage to rewrite your story, please consider leaving a support, any amount, however you can. Your help strengthens this work and allows more content like this to reach more people. Your participation is what keeps this flame burning.